Hi, and welcome to this Mango Masterclass. We've started putting together these masterclasses to help our Mango clients optimize the use of their Mango software product. And this series really comes off the back of us spending a lot of time auditing our client sites, trying to assist them with managing their contractors and suppliers, and seeing a significant gap in the market, particularly around the management of external providers. So what we've done is we've put together a presentation on what the requirements are according to the different ISO standards for the management of external providers. And then we're going to jump into the Mango product and show you all the different options and opportunities that are available to you to help you manage your external providers more effectively. So we put together this presentation, which is based on all the requirements for the different ISO standards to try and just calibrate people on what the best practice requirements are for the management of external providers. So managing external providers effectively is critical to maintaining compliance with either 9, 14, 45, 27, and those are going to be the focus areas that apply to a lot of our clients. So this presentation is a consolidated framework integrating these requirements into a cohesive supplier and contractor management approach. If I have a look across all the different standards, there's a common kind of process for onboarding a supplier or an external provider. Let's just refer to them as that, an external provider. Approving them and then working with them. So we put together this process as a kind of a basic overview. Is you can load the supplier onto Mango. You can then do an initial RFI, or request for information, which we've created an assessment already within Mango. The supplier or the external provider can then upload all of their relevant information, which then comes through to you or your team for a review. So you can have a look at all their policies and procedures and relevant documentation. You can allocate them a risk profile at that particular time, but once they are approved, you can then add them to the approved suppliers list or external providers list and give them a risk rating. Obviously, if they're not approved, then you can then look at terminating them. Once they're on the approved list, then you can start issuing RFQs, requests for quotations to them. There can be a formal review of those RFQs, a review of the contractor or supplier compliance documentation. Once the quote is approved, then the people are approved to supply or to work on site. So once they're working on site, we then want to do contract or supplier review audits. So if you have a look at the process, we want to review their initial documentation and then get them approved if possible. They're then added to the approved suppliers list. Then periodically, when you're going to work with them, they are then approved for the work and then working on site. When they are working on site, you then want to use the audit module to audit their activities, and they can either pass, fail, and be terminated. So holistically, there are 3 key steps within the management of external providers. The onboarding or the receiving of information from an external provider, the review of it, step 1. Then once they are approved and they go into the approved suppliers list, they can have a risk rating, which is then allocates how often you audit them, etc. They will then provide quotations for various different parts of work. But then when they're working or supplying materials, products, or services to you, you then want to audit their activities on site and review their performance. So that's what we believe would be kind of a collective picture of the management of external providers. So let's look at the selection, evaluation, and approval of external providers. And again, we're looking at 9, 14, 45, and 27. All external providers should be evaluated and selected based on their ability to meet your organization's requirements in the following areas. Whether it be quality assurance, their ability to be able to provide consistently conforming products or services. What's their environmental impact? Do they have sustainable practices? Are they in compliance with environmental regulations and or 14,001? What is their health and safety compliance? Do they have workplace health and safety policies and procedures, risk assessments? Are they legally compliant? And then particularly one of the new focus areas is around information security. Do they have data protection methods? Do they have access controls and cybersecurity, particularly if they are going to be custodians of any part of your information's, your organization's information? The organization should establish documented criteria for supplier selection, evaluation, and then re-evaluation. And that, again, emphasizes the process map that we just showed you. So what about contractor regulatory compliance? So again, looking at all 3 standards and the commitments that you've made in your policy, legal and regulatory adherence, external providers must comply with all applicable national and international regulations, as well as the contractual agreements that you guys agreed to within your RFIs, RFQs. And then looking at a supplier code of conduct includes policies, ethical sourcing, human rights, anti-bribery, anti-corruption procedures. And these are commonplace to most organizations. When we're looking at managing external providers, we need to apply risk-based thinking. And basically what all four of those ISO standards say is when you're considering the external provider, you need to consider the impact that that external provider has on your organization from a quality, health, safety, and environmental perspective and allocate them a risk rating. Then we would be required to bring a measure of control to bear against that external provider based on the risk that they pose to us. So things that we would consider there is their product and service, the number of non-conformities. From an environmental perspective, what are their environmental impacts? Health and safety, how significant or dangerous is their work that it will impact us when they come onto site? Information security, what are their information security protocols? Are they POPI compliant? Are they aligned with the information regulator, etc.? So again, those collectively, that integrated risk profile is what you would want to consider when applying risk-based thinking to an external provider and giving them a risk rating, which is then going to speak to the controls that you bring to bear against them and the frequency that you audit them against. So once you've appointed them and you've brought them on board, you need to consider performance monitoring and continual improvement. External providers should be monitored regularly to ensure ongoing compliance through key performance indicators, whether we're looking at delivery times, defect rate, audit results, etc. We need to consider audits and inspections that we're doing of their work on site or what they're supplying, corrective and preventive actions. You should be tracking supplier non-conformities, and then also supplier development programs, encouraging continuous improvement in quality, sustainability, safety, and security, all part of that performance monitoring and measuring. You obviously want to onboard the external provider and make sure that they're suitable. And then once they're working with you, want to continually evaluate their performance. Let's have a look at some of the particular considerations. So around environmental sustainability, we want to make sure that our external providers are assessing and reducing their carbon footprint and their energy consumption. What are they doing with their hazardous waste, and particularly waste that they take from you? What about sustainability and their raw materials, eco-friendly production techniques, and implementing pollution controls and emissions tracking, particularly while they're doing work on your site? What about specific occupational health and safety considerations? Are they conducting workplace risk assessments? Are all of their employees issued with PPE and are suitably trained? Do they know about the emergency response plans? And particularly when we're assessing an external provider, we want to have an understanding of what their historic incident rate is and some of those particular details as part of the onboarding process. What about information security and data protection? Again, are they implementing cybersecurity controls? Do they comply with data privacy regulations, whether it be some of the overseas standards like GDPR or with POPI or the information regulator? And then also maintain an incident response plan and conduct regular IT security audits and vulnerability assessments. When it comes to external providers, we need to make sure that we are maintaining and retaining documented information. So of those, from that process map that we showed you earlier, supplier evaluations and onboarding information, contractual agreements, compliance certificates, professional indemnity, all of those covers, and particularly some of those things that expire from time to time. We want to track their incident reports and corrective actions and make sure that's held in the central repository, and ongoing compliance monitoring activities and performance review should all be retained so that when you are looking at the external provider performance, you're able to make management decisions based on fact. So in conclusion, to achieve a fully compliant integrated management system, the organization should implement holistic supplier or external provider framework covering supplier selection and risk assessment, legal and contractual compliance, performance and monitoring and auditing, specific requirements for quality, environmental safety, and information security, and then the continual improvement strategies. This integrated approach will help you to reduce the risk that external providers expose you to, and then help develop sustainable partnerships, which will help improve your business over time. So that's the end of the presentation. Now we're going to jump into Mango to have a look at what options and opportunities Mango creates to manage those particular processes when it comes to external providers. So welcome to the second part of this Mango Masterclass, where we're going to be jumping into the Mango risk and compliance software and showing you all the different opportunities that exist within that platform to be able to manage your external providers. So where I'm going to start first off is in the system administration, we've got the ability to be able to create assessment templates. So what I've done is I've created a Mango Masterclass external provider RFI, which is the request for information. And this assessment would be sent off to any supplier as part of the onboarding process, looking for basic company information on their quality management system, their environmental management system, OSH management system, information security, legal and contractual compliance, ethical, etc. So there's a very comprehensive assessment form that we've created for assessing external providers and also the risk that they're going to pose to us. So if I go into the supplier module, what I would have done is in the supplier module, I've created a new supplier. It's called One New Contractor. And if I open up the contractor details, you'll see currently the evaluation of that contractor is under review. So all I've done thus far is I've basically created the new contractor, input their registration number, created the fact that they are under review. And then when I go through to the assessments, I'm going to add that RFI assessment to them. So I'm going to select from the templates that are available. And there you go, Mango Masterclass External Provider RFI. And this is One New Contractor, just a test. And the assessor is going to be myself. And I want to email the supplier. And here I'm going to use my Gmail address, just as an example of who that is going to be sent to. So I'm going to add that assessment in. And now you can see that the assessment has been sent to the contractor. See if they haven't got access to Mango as such, but now there's a new assessment. This is the email that they would receive from Mango to be able to log in and do that. So I'm going to be them. I'm going to log into the system and I'm going to fill in. This is the assessment form that has been provided to them. We're going to go through the basics. So what is your company name? It is One New Contractor. What is the company's registration number? As an example, who is the point of contact? It's Mike Dunn. And then what the contractor will do is all that they will do from here, can you provide a relevant copy? And it's a matter of just dragging and dropping documents. Do you have a quality management system? Yes, we do. Can I have a copy of the certificate? And then I just want to cut some text out of here as well, just for them to be able to provide it. How do you ensure product and service requirements? I'm just going to click that in, and the same there. Can you provide evidence of internal audits and other text and more text that they're answering? So basically the supplier would just go through this and answer the questions to the best of their ability, yes or no that they don't do that. Here's how we provide the following. And basically from start to finish, I'm not going to go through everything because it would take up too much time. Here is the opportunity for the external provider to input all of that relevant RFI information to allow you as the client to effectively review them. So once we've got to the end of this, the supplier is just going to go submit. Now, Mike Dunn is the person who's completed this, and they can then sign it off and confirm. So the assessment has then been submitted. You as the manager of Mango, that particular organization, will then be able to log into the assessment or log into Mango. You'd be notified on your dashboard that an assessment has come in. I can then go through here, supplier assessments, One New Contractor. And here is the assessment. So there is all the assessment that the contractor has submitted or the external provider has submitted. I can return it to the supplier if it's not correctly completed, but at this stage, I'm going to open it up. Now what I'm going to do is I want to assess what they have input. So there's their company name. I'm happy to say that's passed. There's the registration number. Mike Dunn is their point of contact. The relevant business licenses. Yes. Do they have QMS? Well, let's say it's partial. Have they been certified? Yes. Am I happy with that? Yes. And basically, I can use this as a structured mechanism to go through. Let's say they haven't passed there, to use this as a mechanism to go through their onboarding information and read it, download all the information that they've done. And eventually, when I get to the end, I can then press save. That I have done the assessment on them. There are the assessment results. And then I can then close off that particular assessment to select the overall result. Let's say hypothetically they passed. There's my signature to say that they have now been assessed. I can then close that off. And the assessment for that contractor could also then be downloaded as a PDF if an auditor wants to have a look at that. And this is what the external provider assessment would look like, with the audit, with the assessment outcomes, and then links through to the information and evidence that the external provider. So again, going back to the presentation where we said that you want to be retaining, your certification auditors are going to ask you for evidence of onboarding for your external providers and how you've assessed them as being suitable. So that's fine. From there, the supplier has now been onboarded, which is great. I can then move that supplier from being at a particular rating to now being an approved supplier, and that information is then stored against their background history. So I'm going to go through to evaluation, and they are now moved from under review to an approved, let's say, moderate risk contractor, because I want to allocate them to a risk profile. I can set, because of that, just wait, I want to stay and I want to save that. I can go and set up events based on their risk profile to say I want to do a quarterly review or a biannual or an annual review. The system is then going to track their evaluations, other information, and then there will be copies of the assessments in the background if ever I want to go back to the supplier assessment. So basically that'll handle the onboarding of the external provider. We've now reviewed all the information. We've said that they are an approved supplier. They're now on the approved suppliers list. So if I have a look at the approved suppliers list, they are now approved moderate risk, and we can then link them to categories in terms of the services. Now what we're going to do is that we are going to work with them. So we're bringing them onto site. They're going to be doing some engineering work. I've already reviewed their health and safety documentation as part of their onboarding. Let's say now I want to go and do an audit on that particular contractor. So here I can go into manage audits. I want to do an audit on that external provider. So let's say there is a contractor audit checklist that I want to use, and this is going to be for one new contractor. I can, of course, pick them up as a supplier. There's one new contractor. The auditor is going to be myself. I'll also be the reviewer in this instance. And then once I press save, I can then go and do the audit. So now that the audit has been allocated to me, I can go back to my audits. I can just as easily do this audit from my mobile device if I need to go out onto the site. I'm going to open this up for editing. Right. Have they completed a list of job descriptions? And let's say, yes, that's fine. Do they have copies, ID copies in the health and safety file? Do they have a copy of the SHE policy? Was the SHE policy communicated to them? And within this, the benefit of this is that there's multiple different interventions that I can do. I can record what comment against the evidence. I can also then upload a file to support that particular audit outcome. Let's say I want to add a file. I can add a file, or if I want to add an image, I can also then add an image into that, which will then be recorded underneath the audit question. I can then go and review proof of legal liabilities. I can go and check on-site physical inspection requirements, etc. So that's just an example of both the assessment component that you can use to onboard suppliers, as well as an audit that you can do once your suppliers or external providers are on site to go and assess their on-site audit activities. Now, I'm just going to save this. I'm going to sign off the audit. My signature in terms of the outcome of the audit, I'm then going to sign it off. Now, again, I'm going to go back to the supplier portal because I just want to go through the picture that we've now created of effectively onboarding a supplier, doing an assessment on them, and then once we're working with them, doing an audit. And the benefit of Mango is all of those requirements are retained in one single point of truth. So here, if I go through to one new contractor, in terms of the history, I've got an audit. There's the contractor audit that was done, which is already archived against their particular history, which will be available. I can go and have a look at the assessments that were done, all the open ones, and there's copies of the assessments in terms of their onboarding. Now, based on the risk, let's say I want to set up an event for a quarterly supplier review. So I'm going to say one new contractor review, and the due date for this is going to be at the end of the month. I want this to be every 3 months, and I want to be reminded 1 week before, and then if I don't go and sign it off, every 1 day after that. The event owner is myself, and I can then put in the text of what's going to appear in the email, and then let's say after 1 week of me not signing that particular event off, I can then escalate that through to a superior. So I've now set up an event, which is then going to remind me to do a contractor review. So let's kind of take a look back. There are the contractor details. I've set up an event schedule based on the risk profile. I'm going to audit these guys or do a review on them every 3 months. In the history, every improvement, every audit, everything that I log within Mango is then going to come across the supplier history. I've got an evaluation in place where they've been approved and who did the assessment. I've got some of the assessment history. We can then upload other insurances and other documents, but I've already got them in the assessment. And here will be my onboarding assessment or the history of that. Quick insert. We thought we'd take the opportunity to show you what a well-managed external provider in Mango looks like. So here we are back in the Mango site. If I go through to the suppliers module and I go and have a look at one of the suppliers there, let's use 45 South as an example. So you can see they're on the list of approved suppliers. I've got 45 South, their category, what services they provide, what their risk rating is, the number of events. So I can see they've got a green tick against them, which means all their events are up to date. If I open up the supplier details, I can see all of their information. I can see that supplier events, repeat reviews of the contractors are set. I can have a look at all the history. So all of the Mango modules speak to each other. The environmental, any incidents or any of the workflow modules that have been logged. So an environmental incident has been logged, 2 improvements, a maintenance request, a security incident, and a couple of audits. So the beautiful thing about Mango is it creates a spot or a single point of truth for all of your external provider information. So when it comes around for external provider review, I've got all the information that I need at my fingertips. I've got the evaluation. I've got links into all the assessments that were done, what the supplier rating is, any of the associated documentation. I've got insurances and other certificates that may expire that the system is then going to remind me of. And I've then got access to all of the assessments that were done on this external provider. And I can go through, and here is the RFI that was done on them and all the information that was uploaded. And you can see the assessment that was done on 45 South. So there you have it. That's what a well-managed external provider within the Mango software is going to do for you. There we have a kind of comprehensive overview of what 9, 14, 45, and 27 have to say about the management of external providers. We've also now done a Mango Masterclass on how Mango can help you effectively manage your external providers in one single point of truth, where you've got a register of all of your suppliers. You've got the ability to onboard them, retain all of the onboarding information, to give them to approve the supplier if necessary. And then as you work with them from time to time to go and do audits and other inspections and assessments against them. So you've got information of effective onboarding, and then also the effective review of their performance. Every single time you log an improvement, you log an environmental incident, an occupational health and safety incident, any of those kind of things will then be logged against your supplier history. So when it comes around for the review of external providers, you've got the ability to make management decisions based on fact. I trust that you enjoyed this Mango Masterclass.